I'm here today with Emily Kirsch from Powerhouse Ventures and Jennifer from the Fifth Wall Climate team. And we're very excited to be announcing today that Fifth Wall has invested in Powerhouse Ventures.
Really, if you think about the magnitude of what we need to do to get there, it's 18 trillion that we need to invest probably over the next couple decades to decarbonize our building stock. And we're certainly not going to be able to do that alone. So within that, we've looked at the ecosystem of seed stage funds to be able to really bolster our support of the overall climate tech innovation ecosystem.
Our purpose at Powerhouse Ventures is to address the climate crisis with innovation, and our mission is to back founders that are building innovative software companies to rapidly decarbonize our global systems. And so our thesis is to get the tech that has already been proven and worked on for decades to scale globally as quickly as possible. And so our thesis covers three areas: finance and deployment, so software and financial technology that enables and accelerates the financing and deployment of these climate tech solutions. Second, asset management and optimization, so for assets that are already out there in the world, how to maximize their longevity and their value. And then third, market access and participation, how to enable as many entities and people as possible to benefit from these solutions. We pivoted in 2018 to be what the company is today, which is an innovation firm that works with globally leading corporations to help them find, partner with, invest in, and in some cases acquire the most promising climate tech startups that have the technology that they're looking for. And so our clients include utilities like Enel that have deployed more renewables than any utility in the world, and Google, who's committed to 24/7 carbon-free energy. Every one of those relationships that we built with founders and with corporate leaders and with investors enabled us to build the foundation to then spin up Powerhouse Ventures, which we launched in 2018. And at the time, it was one of the only seed stage climate tech funds in the country. And we're still one of the only seed stage climate tech funds that is software focused and that is women founded and women led, which is unique. And it's worth noting that the climate tech ecosystem at the seed stage has been growing really quickly since we started in 2018. Looking at last year, there was $1 billion invested in seed stage climate tech companies out of about $56 billion in venture dollars that were invested in climate tech broadly. So we are seeing more investment in the space, but I know that Powerhouse Ventures and our fellow seed stage co-investors play a really important role at one of the most important stages for our company. So Powerhouse was very intentional about the LPs that we brought in, especially in terms of corporates and fund of funds. And so we have representation across every area we invest in, across energy, automotive, financial services, utilities, and tech. But there was one piece that was missing, and that was Proptech. And we know how important that is because Proptech is the largest asset class in the world. It is also the largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, 40% compared to transport at 30%, and industry also at 30%. And so bringing you all on board as our only Proptech fund gets us connected and our portfolio companies connected to all of your LPs who are the potential customers and future investors and future acquirers of our portfolio companies. So I think the synergies couldn't be clearer or more valuable to us and to our portfolio companies. Given the realities of climate science, we have to do as much as we can in this decade. And there is technology that has been iterated on for decades that can get us to 90% decarbonization of our electricity sector today.
Fantastic. And now with this new fund, what is your focus? What's the fund size and really the different areas that you're looking at investing in?
Of course. So Powerhouse Ventures Fund 2 is a $75 million seed stage software focused climate tech fund with LPs that span every area we invest in: energy, mobility, utilities, financial services, tech, and now Proptech, thanks to Fifth Wall. Fund 2 is 10 times the size of our first fund, which says more about the small size of our first fund than the size of our second, but still we're thrilled to be able to back entrepreneurs with the capital that they need and to be able to write much larger checks, to lead rounds, to take board seats. These are things that we're thrilled to do.
And also, 10xing a fund over fund, right? I think probably also speaks to the performance of Fund 1. So maybe you can say a little bit about that too.
Sure, thank you for that question. So in Fund 1, when we look at the average company valuation appreciation, meaning the value from when we invested relative to the value today based on rounds that have actually closed, there's a 5x company valuation appreciation over the past 4 years.
Yeah, which is very impressive because I think generally if you look at the seed fund ecosystem, seed funds have not been one of the best performing asset classes within the venture capital ecosystem writ large. So it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about your own journey with Powerhouse and beyond that.
Sure. So I got really fortunate coming out of undergrad. I met somebody named Van Jones, who was an advisor to President Obama, focused on green jobs. Van was friends with the singer Prince, and Prince did all this secret philanthropic work all over the country. And he was so humble that if you worked with him on it, not only did he not want you to talk about it, you could not talk about it. And through his friendship with Van, he wanted to do something related to clean energy in Oakland. And at the time, a mutual friend of Van and I's, Billy Parrish, was starting a company called Mosaic. And I had the opportunity to work with Mosaic on their pilot, which was crowdsourcing capital to finance solar on nonprofits and community-based orgs throughout Oakland. And it turns out that Prince wanted to support that pilot. And so the initial capital for many of those projects came from Prince. And to this day, if you drive around Oakland and see solar on a church or a nonprofit, it was likely funded, at least in part, by Prince. And so it was through that experience working with Mosaic and helping connect them to their first customers, and friends and colleagues of mine were connecting them to their first investors. I thought, there must be other Mosaics out there that if given that same type of support that Prince generously provided and that my colleagues and I were supporting Mosaic with, there could be a whole ecosystem of innovators and entrepreneurs that could accelerate their businesses and their impact much more quickly than if everyone was trying to do it on their own. So shout out to Prince.
So I think one of the great things that Powerhouse Ventures has done is building up a following and frankly, making climate cool, right?
5 years ago, 10 years ago, VCs were intentionally hard to reach and you had to know someone, and their website was just a poorly designed landing page. And I know you all in Powerhouse Ventures has certainly invested in making ourselves accessible because we want the deal flow and we want to hear about opportunities before anyone else.
And what I think is actually specifically important about this at the seed stage, right, is I almost think about this as it's a battle for the hearts and minds, right? Which is that over the last 20 years, the best and the brightest people in the world have gone to the Facebooks and Googles of the world to optimize ad click-throughs, right? And ultimately, if we're going to save the planet, we need those IQ points to be pointed at climate, right? And so inspiring people and helping them to get into climate and even think of this as a possibility, I could start a climate startup even though I don't know anything about energy potentially, I think is a critical part that you play in the ecosystem.
Thank you. And we've seen this exodus of people who have dedicated their careers to traditional tech entering the climate tech space, joining companies, starting companies, and I think we all have a role to play in making it clear that everyone from every industry has something to contribute to the climate tech space. And so we're really excited to make those opportunities available and clear to people that want to take the next step in their career and dedicate it to climate.
So Fifth Wall are very heavily thesis-driven investors, and I think that really rings true with Powerhouse as well. But what's key to being a strong thesis-driven investor is having a background for it. So Marie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah, I've spent my entire career in energy. So I graduated and went right into actually oil and gas after graduation, and was doing strategic planning and corporate planning there. And that whole role was just about making decisions under uncertainty in complex industries. And so while I really liked the functional work, it was not the future of energy where I wanted to be. So I came to the Bay Area to go to Cal at the Haas School of Business and really deep dive into the clean energy, clean mobility side of things, and was lucky enough to connect with Emily and her team as an intern, and then full-time at Powerhouse for the last 3 years. So I think, like my colleagues, we've been in the industry for a long time and get to bring that perspective to investing.
Fantastic. Well, at Fifth Wall, we certainly see a lot of overlap between climate technology and obviously if you want to decarbonize the built environment, you kind of have to decarbonize everything. What are some of the emerging themes that you guys are seeing today?
This movement towards ESG and carbon management and accounting, you're having a lot of action and commitment from voluntary corporate players who are really driving a lot of exciting solutions in a way that the federal government or regulations hasn't quite done yet. And I think we're on the cusp of seeing a lot more tech-driven supply chain visibility and scope 3 tools to feed into this larger movement around accountability and visibility around ESG and carbon metrics. We've seen a really exciting amount of movement around fleet electrification in this space. We have some acquisitions, we have some great technology stacks, we have a lot of players who are trying to really build toolkits for fleets to electrify alongside passenger vehicles. And with that, we're looking at infrastructure build out and where software can play a role for interoperability and deployment and making sure customers are having a really good experience no matter where they charge.
The average gas station right now is making $3-ish million per year selling gasoline. That's just gasoline, not the slushies. That is revenue that over the next 20-ish years is going to reallocate itself to whoever has the nearest EV chargers, which in our case is most likely going to be the shopping mall or the multifamily unit, just down the block. Right? So when you look at the reallocation of revenue, that's hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue just in the US that is going to reallocate itself from potentially the oil and gas industry to potentially the real estate industry, if the real estate industry is sort of ready there to catch the money.